Have you ever felt it? Everything around you seems to be in its right place. Your name, the room you're in, the person sleeping next to you, and yet, something feels off. So subtle, so faint. No one else would notice it. But you do. You look out the window. The morning light spills in just as it does every other day. But inside you, there's a strange stillness. Not peace, not turmoil, just a hollow space. As if a part of you didn't return after sleep. Or more precisely, as if you've accidentally stepped into another dream, one the world insists is reality. You still remember how to hold your favorite cup. You still brush your teeth to the same rhythm. You still smile at the partner beside you. But deep down, you know, something is repeating itself. Not just today, echoing yesterday, but something older, a memory perhaps, playing out again in the shape of your life. And slowly, the signs begin to appear. A song comes on, right at the part you once heard in a dream. A stranger walks past, with eyes that pull something silent from your chest. A scent drifts by, and your whole body freezes. You don't know where you've smelled it before, but you know it meant something. You freeze. You can't name what's happening. You just know. You've lived this before. Not here, not with these people. But the feeling is the same. Perhaps you start dreaming the same dream again and again. Or maybe you don't dream at all. But life, while awake, starts to feel like a dream you can't wake up from. You begin to ask questions. Why do all my relationships end the same way? Why do I keep feeling the same things, no matter how much I change jobs, places, or people? What is this thing that keeps calling me, and why can't I name it? You're not crazy. You're not lost in fantasy. You're simply remembering something that your soul has never forgotten. Maybe you chose this once, then twice, then a third time, just to finally learn one single truth. It's not reality that's repeating itself. It's an unfinished soul memory, asking to be seen. Reality is your soul's way of retelling what was never fully healed. Some loops don't live in time. They live in emotion, in choices you thought were free, in wounds you thought were new. But look closer. It's the same melody, just a different voice singing it. And if you're here, if you're still listening, maybe it's time to realize you don't need to change your life. You just need to see who is the one reliving it. There is no door to escape through. No one is coming to save you. There is only one thing waiting for you to touch. Presence. True presence. So deep that you finally see. You're not trapped in a loop. You're simply walking through a story that was never told to its end. And this time, maybe you'll tell it. Not with words, but with a presence so full, so real. Even the dream can't swallow you anymore. If these words made you pause, if part of you just breathed differently, if you don't even know why you're still watching this, then maybe you've just started to wake up from what you once believed was real. You start paying more attention to the little things. That person just entered your life, and somehow, illogically, you already know they'll leave in the exact way you've always feared. A familiar situation, but placed in a different scene. An opportunity arises. But the moment you reach for it, it fades, just like all the times before. You want to believe this is the first time. You want to believe it's all a coincidence. But something deep inside won't let you. It keeps whispering, "I've been here before." Not because you remember it, but because your soul reacts as if it can no longer trust what's unfolding. You call it a coincidence. You call it fate. You call it karma. But beneath all those names, there's a knowing you can't deny. You're reliving something you once tried desperately to forget. And the more you run from it, the faster it finds its way back. The more you try to change it, the more it looks the same. You change where you live. You change your friends. You change the way you love. But that feeling inside stays untouched. There are mornings you wake up and feel no hope, not because of anything specific, but because the repetition has become too subtle. It doesn't show up in the old forms, but you still recognize it. It carries the same scent. It leaves the same wound in the same place. Even if the years have reshaped everything else, and you start to feel tired. Not tired from life being too hard, but tired of not knowing whether you're truly living or just reperforming a script you can't even see. You catch yourself reacting the same way, the same fear, the same anger. The same ways of avoiding, as if you're echoing a version of yourself you no longer want to be. You thought you had changed. You thought you had healed. You thought you had forgiven. You thought the work was done. But reality isn't letting you go that easily. It keeps circling back, not to punish you, but to show you what you thought you understood, but never truly faced. You begin to feel like an actor trapped in a role. There's no director, no script in your hand. All you know is, this scene has been filmed before, and you're still saying the same lines, doing the same things, hurting in the same places. And now, the collapse isn't a breakdown, it's the truth surfacing. A truth so painful, you no longer want to resist it. You don't want to continue playing a role you once mistakenly thought was your identity. You don't want to pretend to be strong. You don't want to force forgiveness. You don't want to keep living as if you don't know what's happening. So you sit in silence, not for meditation, not for spirituality, not for faith, but because there's nowhere left to run. The room becomes eerily quiet. No one is asking you to do anything. No one is judging you. No one is there at all, just you. And the realization. You're living a reality that isn't your first. And your greatest fear is that you'll keep repeating it without ever knowing why. And if you're still here, if this hasn't made you turn away, then maybe what comes next isn't about the pain anymore, but about the memory behind it. Are you ready to remember what your soul never forgot? There are wounds you thought you had already moved past, but in truth, they were only asleep. And reality, it is the bell that rings to wake them. You meet someone new. It feels like a beginning. But just a few conversations in, you realize they're triggering old fears in completely new ways. They don't insult you. They don't betray you. They simply exist, as if they were designed to touch precisely the cracks you've hidden the deepest. The soul doesn't send people to make you happy. It sends them to help you remember the places where you locked your heart away long ago. And suddenly, you panic, not because of them, but because of how accurate the loop is. Every word, every feeling of abandonment, every emotional reaction seems too intense for the moment. All of it plays out like a script. You didn't write, but somehow know by heart. You want to escape. You want to forget. You want to start over, somewhere far away. But deep down, you know, no matter where you go, the memories you haven't healed will follow. You don't need to leave the city. You don't need to walk away from them. You don't need to change your surroundings. The only thing that truly needs to change, it's how you choose to show up. Within the loop itself, you begin to see, it's not just that people keep hurting you. It's that every time they do, you respond like the abandoned child you once were. It's not that you keep being left behind, it's that you're still carrying a pattern no one ever held with tenderness. Maybe in another life, you were betrayed. Maybe you once died because no one heard you. Maybe you promised yourself, from now on, I'll never let anyone get that close again. And that promise still lives on, not in your conscious mind, but in your body, in your energy, in the magnetic pull that keeps attracting the same people, the same pain, in slightly different clothing. You're not living wrongly, you're just reliving. So this time, you can see more clearly. No longer the victim. No longer the abandoned one. No longer the helpless character waiting to be rescued. But a soul slowly remembering. The contract is written. Before entering this life, memory doesn't need to be crystal clear. It only needs your permission to return. Not to be interrogated, but to be understood. What are you living now? It is not a mistake. It's a repeating doorway, leading you back to a part of yourself you've never touched. And when you're brave enough to stay, you might begin to see it's not reality that's repeating itself. It's what you're being offered. One more chance to choose differently. And if you're still here, maybe you're now standing at the real threshold of awakening, not through the light, but through the darkness you've spent lifetimes avoiding. Are you ready to step into what comes next, where the soul begins to speak, not in words, but in memory? You start to realize, not everyone sees what you're beginning to see. Not everyone senses the strange signs unfolding around them. And not everyone is waking up from the dream called reality. You no longer see life as a string of random events, but as a mirror, reflecting every crack, every part within you that remains incomplete, the people you meet, and the situations you stumble into, the unexplained pain that comes and goes. All of it is leading you back to the beginning, to the moment you first split away from yourself. Maybe you start to remember, not with your mind, but with feelings you can't quite explain. A pair of eyes that make you feel like you're dissolving. A song that brings tears, though you don't know why. A place you've never set foot in. Yet it feels like the first home you ever had. The soul doesn't speak in words. It hints, it guides. It whispers through symbols, through sensations, through intuition that the mind could never reach. And you start to hear it, not with your ears, but with a deep silence, right in the center of your chest, a hollow place that never seemed to fill. Suddenly it becomes the space where your soul begins to speak. You come to a decision, and instead of reacting the way you always have, you pause, you sit still, you watch what you feel. You begin to notice that so many of your choices were simply escapes, ways to avoid touching a primal wound. You didn't know it was still there, but this time, you don't run. You allow the memory to return. It doesn't need to be clear, it just needs to be honest. Maybe you were once a mother who lost her child. Maybe you were a soldier who never made it home. Maybe you betrayed your soul, just to play a role the world told you was right. And now, those memories are no longer tragedies. They are pieces, reminders of what you once forgot. And why did you come back this time? Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." Fate isn't out there. It lives in the parts of you you've never dared to turn toward. But once you begin to see, fate isn't a trap. It becomes a map. Every person who enters comes playing a role already chosen. They're not enemies. They're co-stars. Fellow souls, helping you remember the knots left untied in your older scripts. And if you're willing to look, you'll begin to see that coincidences were never random. That's your recurring loops, were opportunities, disguised in pain. That's the hardest relationship, were the fastest doors back into yourself. You didn't come here to live an easy life. You came to complete, to unlock a door you once left unfinished, to love again, where you once swore you never would. And the next part of the journey begins not when you fight, but when you ask, what am I being invited to remember? Maybe you once thought awakening would arrive like a flash of light, but in truth, it's a long series of subtle tremors, like the ocean floor shifting, while the surface remains undisturbed. You don't see what's happening, you just know. You're no longer who you were. The things that once thrilled you now leave you hollow, The conversations you used to cherish now echo like old sounds. In an abandoned room, that's a sign. You're moving out of one layer of reality, not through dramatic actions, but through a quiet shift in perception. You start to feel energy, not in some mystical way, but in the very real sense. That is when someone enters a room, you already know what they bring before they speak. You begin to trust your intuition, not as a tool, but as a deeper version of self, gently guiding you forward. Everything starts to align. You think of someone, and they text. You're about to ask something, and another answers first. You click a random video, and it says exactly what your soul needed to hear. Synchronicity is no longer surprising. It becomes the soul's way of whispering, yes, keep going. Don't doubt. You no longer need reasons to believe. You just need silence. Silence to see. Each loop is drawing you closer to your center. Silence to see. That pain doesn't come to break you, but to open a window you once shut tight out of fear of the light, and so you begin to choose differently, not to escape fate, but with the awareness, I'm reliving this because I never fully lived it the first time. You say, I love you, without needing it returned. You forgive, without demanding an apology. You walk away, not out of anger, but because the scene is complete. This isn't enlightenment, it's return. A return to yourself. Behind all the masks, all the lessons, all the tragedies, all the dreams. You no longer need anyone to validate what you're feeling is real. You just need to feel it, because your soul never lies to you. It simply brings you through the same place, again and again, until you stop, face it, and nod gently. You're reliving, but this time, you know you are, and that awareness changes everything. If you're still hearing these words, then maybe you're no longer just the character in the story. You're becoming the one, rewriting the script, not with your hands, but with your presence. And now, you're ready to move even deeper. Into the question beneath all questions. What is reality, if it's just a dream replayed, so you can finally see it with new eyes? Set every question aside, not because you don't deserve answers, but because some truths, they are not meant to be solved with words. They can only be met through presence, a presence so deep, even pain becomes quiet. You've walked through the loop, you've seen, you've felt, you've breathed with it, trembled with it, and now, there's nothing left to do. There is only one thing left to allow: presence. Presence. Not as an effort to awaken, not as a meditation to achieve something, not as an escape from the loop, but as a quiet staying. A staying so complete, the loop no longer swallows you. Eckhart Tolle once said, "You are not your pain. You are the space in which everything happens." So what if this reality is there also something meant to pass through? What if the loop isn't a glitch in the system, but a current meant to be witnessed? What if what's hurting you, it's not what's happening, but how do you unconsciously resist it? Try not resisting, just for a few minutes. Inhale, softly, no force. Exhale, and let the tension melt like morning fog. Right now, in the space between your breaths, you are not the one trying to find a way out. You are simply the presence watching itself. No need to understand, no need to fix anything, just be here. If your mind starts searching for a reason, smile at it. The mind is doing what it does, trying to solve. But you are doing what the soul does, remembering. You didn't come here to analyze life. You came here to live it. With presence. Feelings aren't here to be avoided. They are maps. Each time pain rises, instead of closing off, you open. You ask, where is this pain coming from? What is it trying to show me that I still haven't touched? You no longer use spirituality to bypass hardship. You use hardship to walk straight into the spirit. And then you begin to see. Reality is no longer the enemy. It's no longer a maze, no longer a loop. It's a doorway, a door without a handle, a door that doesn't need to be opened, a door that opens only when you stop trying to escape. You've traveled far, but maybe every journey I was only leading you back to this moment, this place. Where do you sit down? Stop searching. Just breathe and whisper to your soul, I'm here, I'm alive, and this time, I'm not going to leave myself again. If reality is a dream repeating itself, then who is the one dreaming? And more importantly, why did the soul choose to dream this? You might believe you're a victim of circumstance. You might believe it's all karmic consequence. You might believe you need to overcome, awaken, escape this illusion. But what if none of that is true? What if the loop isn't here to punish you, but to teach you how to love what you once rejected? What if pain isn't a chain, but a rough, primitive instrument your soul is strumming to help you remember who you once were? What if nothing is wrong at all? What if you don't need to become better, brighter, or more enlightened? What if you only need to return? Return to the original state, where you're not trying to control reality, not trying to fix yourself, not chasing light as a reward, but simply living each moment as it is, fully. When you see reality as a dream, it's not to dismiss it, but to meet it with gratitude. Every moment becomes a gateway, every repetition a signal. Here is where you once shut down. This time, you can choose to open. No validation needed, no explanation required, no ritual necessary. Only one thing matters, that you face the loop and no longer look away. Carl Jung didn't try to erase the shadow. He sat beside it, watched it, touched it, and let it become part of consciousness. So can you. You don't have to push away what hurts. You just have to be present deeply enough, so it no longer controls you unconsciously. Awakening isn't about becoming special. It's about becoming real. And sometimes, that realness is very quiet, very ordinary, very unremarkable. Just a moment where you look at the sky and no longer wish for more, just a breath, where you hold yourself gently, without needing a reason, just a stillness, where nothing is missing and nothing is chasing. If you're still here, if you're breathing with these words, then you're not learning something new. You're remembering, not with the mind, but with presence, not to escape the loop, but to fully live each turn of it, until the loop dissolves inside you. And when that happens, you are no longer caught in repetition, because you have become the one who is dreaming, and you finally know that you are. No one can tell you that you've awakened, and no one can show you the way out of the loop, because what keeps repeating isn't out there, it's within you, and only you will know when it's time to pause. Not pause to end, but pause to be present, fully, completely. You've gone far enough to understand. Not everyone will understand your journey, and that is okay. You don't need to explain this. You don't need anyone to validate that you're on the right path, because for the first time, you see something clearly. This is not a path that leads anywhere. It's a path meant to bring you back to yourself, back to the parts of you you once rejected, back to memories that were never really memories, but fragments of your soul that had never been held. You've relived so many old scenes. You've repeated so many familiar pains. You've fallen in love again with different faces, but the same frequency, and you are tired, not tired of life, but tired of pretending you don't remember. Now, you don't need an answer. You need silence. A silence deep enough to feel everything you once called a loop. It was an invitation to pause, an invitation to breathe, an invitation to choose differently. For the first time, not out of fear, not out of habit, but because you've finally seen it all. You don't have to understand this whole journey. You just have to walk with it, like hearing a piece of music without knowing the lyrics, and still feeling your heart soften. If something inside you just went still, if you feel like you've just remembered something ancient, something familiar, yet nameless, then maybe you've touched the deeper layer that every loop was leading you toward, not because you needed to break it, but because you are the one rewriting the story in a different way. And if there's one thing to carry forward after all these words, let it be compassion for yourself, for who you used to be, for who you're slowly becoming, and for all the other souls who are also repeating on paths that seem different, but it led to the same threshold. Before this video comes to a close, I have no answers for you, only a question, one that doesn't need to be answered with words. If you're reliving a soul memory, then what's inside you is waiting to be lived fully, for the very first time. Hold that question in your heart. Don't force it to bloom. Let it rest, like a seed. Because when you are truly ready, no one will need to remind you. No signs will be required. No method will be necessary. You'll simply know. This time, you're living differently. Not because life has changed, but because you have returned. This video doesn't end. It's just a piece of music. The rest, you'll write yourself in the quiet presence of your becoming.